Good evening. You're watching Arirang News at 8. It's Tuesday, January 7th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye. No response yet from Pyongyang on President Park Geun-hye's proposal for reunions of families separated by the Korean War, but experts say her offer is likely to serve as strong momentum to mending soured inter-Korean ties. Arirang News' Han Da-eun reports.
Following in the footsteps of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's friendly New Year's message, President Park Geun-hye also made a conciliatory gesture on Monday, suggesting a resumption of inter-Korean family reunions for those separated since the Korean War. Pyongyang unilaterally and abruptly canceled reunions planned for September, just days before they were to take place. So could President Park's proposal serve as the touchstone for friendlier inter-Korean relations this year? Experts say yes.
I think the proposal will serve as momentum to improve strained inter-Korean ties. President Park did urge North Korea to abandon its nuclear program, but overall, her speech has left the door open for dialogue. North Korea doesn't want further tensions now either, as it's weathering some internal instability.
Seoul's Unification Ministry, however, made clear on Tuesday that the issue of family reunions will not be linked to the halted inter-Korean tourism project near Mount Kumgangsan. The announcement is being interpreted by many as a way to block North Korea from taking advantage of family reunions to restart tourism operations. Seoul maintains the stance that tours to the Mount Kumgang resort will not resume unless Pyongyang claims responsibility for shooting a South Korean tourist dead in 2008. But some experts say the issue of the Mount Kumgangsan project won't get in the way of restarting inter-Korean dialogue.
Even if North Korea attempts to mix the two issues, I think the two sides will be able to find middle ground, as they've now both entered a phase of seeking out dialogue.
Analysts also add Seoul's latest offer will serve as a barometer of North Korea's sincerity in mending ties with the South. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
As a follow-up to President Park Geun-hye's announcement of a 3-year economic innovation plan on Monday, Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok said the ministry will unveil a detailed 3-year plan by February. During an economic ministers meeting Tuesday, Hyun said the plan will ensure government subsidies are used more efficiently and public companies are free of corruption. He also said it will resolve the imbalance between domestic demand and exports in the economy. President Park, during her news conference Monday, announced that with the 3-year plan, she plans to put the country on a path to a per capita income of $40,000 US. Now, more on President Park Geun-hye's economic vision. Her push to ease investment regulations in the service sector to boost domestic demand is showing signs of progress. But challenges remain, and the voices of dissent are growing louder. Our Kwon So-ah has more.
A bill proposed to ease regulations for industrial complex investments was passed at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, one day after President Park Geun-hye placed an emphasis on boosting domestic demand by deregulating the service sector.
올해 투자 관련 규제를 백지 상태에서 전면 재검토해서 꼭 필요한 규제가 아니면 모두 풀겠습니다.
As another follow-up measure to President Park's plan, the ruling Saenuri Party said on Tuesday that it will focus on passing laws related to streamlining regulations at a parliamentary extra session scheduled for February. They say about 20 bills were pushed back in 2013. According to the party's think tank, merely passing the pending bills could bump up the nation's economic growth rate by 0.4%. One of the bills the Saenuri Party proposed last year was related to a zoning law that says no hotels can be built within 200 meters of an elementary, middle, or high school. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance expects that lifting the restriction could result in 60 new hotels in the country and about 47,000 new jobs. However, the main opposition Democratic Party stood in opposition to the bill, claiming it would damage the environment for education. Another pending law would allow casinos to be built and operate on Korean cruise lines, a move designed to attract more foreign tourists to the country. The Democratic Party, however, said the change could lead to a growth in gambling addiction. The party also expressed concerns that President Park's aim of easing investment regulations is a move towards privatization, especially in the health sector, something that could lead to a rise in medical costs, a drop in quality, and polarization among economic classes. President Park, meanwhile, will be leading the ministerial meeting for the regulation reforms herself. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
New data from Korea's central bank shows that household debt nationwide grew at a faster pace in 2013. As Korean households plunge further and further into debt, concerns are rising that a growing financial burden may hurt domestic demand. Papal reports.
The Bank of Korea released data on Tuesday showing that the country's household debt reached an all-time high last year. Outstanding household lending by local banks and non-bank financial institutions totaled a record $639.5 billion as of the end of November. The increase of $4.7 billion from October marks the largest monthly gain in 5 months since a nearly $6.2 billion on-month advance in June. The central bank says the growth in mortgage loans expanded due in part to an increase in housing transactions during the cited period. The latest tally shows that Korean households are feeling the burden of massive debt. The nation's household credit, which includes bank loans and purchases on credit, hit a fresh high of over $931 billion as of the end of September. At this current pace, that figure is expected to surpass about $940 billion by November. And compared to 2004, the nation's household debt level has more than doubled. Other statistics have shown that Korean households have also lost their spending power. Household debt against disposable income rose to 136% last year, the highest ratio in a decade. The new data comes ahead as BOK policymakers are scheduled to hold a rate-setting session for January on Thursday. Analysts widely expect the central bank to freeze the key interest rate at 2.5% for the 8th consecutive month. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Korea's middle class, which constitutes the economic backbone of our society, is on the decline, widening the income gap between the rich and poor. And in the wake of the prolonged economic downturn, the middle income bracket is on the verge of collapse, posing a huge threat to tax revenue and economic growth in the long term. For more on the shrinking middle class in the country, we go one-on-one with Dr. Kim Jong-un, head of K&P Consulting and a longtime commentator on Arirang News. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Right, so to start, who are considered to be in the middle income pool?
Actually, we have some interesting numbers. Let's bring it up on the screen here. Recently, Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs has released new numbers that compares for the last 2 decades. And as you can see, this is a median income. So if you line up everybody in Korea who earns their earnings and someone in the middle, standing in the middle, he or she makes 1.79 million won per month. So that a lot of people will be surprised. Actually, this could be a very small amount of money that we are talking about. But indeed, even though it's not totally up to date, 2010, because of this 2-decade study, this is the best one that Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs could release. But the thing is, 1.79 million won per month is the median income. And what we do is you go with plus 50% of that, going up to 2.7 million per month. That's the top cap of middle class in Korea. And then go down minus 50 of it, going down to 895,000 won per month. So that's the range of middle class we are talking about. I'm sure a lot of people will say a lot about this amount, but this is the official number.
So compared to OECD nations, is this considered to be high? Or?
No, I don't think so. It just shows us overall, we'll talk more about this here, but it shows overall polarization and a weak middle.
So reports say the middle income bracket is on the decline over the past 2 decades. Do the recently released numbers back that up?
Right, indeed. Let's bring up next numbers, set of numbers here, and it actually clearly tells us what's happening. I told you about that plus 50% on top of that median income we talked about, and then minus 50, and that's the range, that pink or red section here. And it clearly tells us from 1990 to 2010, the portion has decreased from 74% down to 67%. So it clearly tells us that story. And the richer people, correctly shown in gold numbers, I suppose, from there, 18% increasing down up to 20%. And what's more serious problem here is that the bottom at the blue section here, from 7% growing to 12%. This is a low income bracket of the Koreans, and that's what we are talking about as the most serious aspect of this polarization.
All right. So further analysis shows that growing numbers of senior citizens are getting poorer. Can you elaborate on this social trend?
Right. This is something that Korea has not become familiarized with before, and this is a very recent trend here. But the gold, senior citizen segment right there, as you can see, these are the group of people who have low-level income, the bottom side that we just saw previously. And if you break down those people in terms of age groups, this is what's happening. As you can see, the seniors group is increasing from 7.9% back in 1990, getting close to 40% of the low-income group. And those are the people who are 60 years or older. So this is a very serious problem. And the shrinking portion, that blue section for younger people in their 30s, so what does it tell us? Well, there could be so many different kinds of interpretation for that. But in my own view, my take would be actually more those in their 30s may be actually living with their parents, actually depending upon their parents' income.
I see. So what is the key to preventing the collapse of the middle class?
That is a million-dollar question, and I don't think anyone really has an easy answer to that. And one aspect or problem we can start with would be next illustration here. This is the overall age of individual entrepreneurs here in Korea who do not have like really exciting businesses, but number is growing these days. In Korea, we are talking about 6 million people who are entering this area of individual entrepreneurship, small businesses, and an age increasing is just telling us more and more people are driven out of their regular workforce in big corporations and so on, retiring early because they're getting expensive under Korean system of a seniority-based wage system, and they're opening their individual entrepreneurship here. So this is a concerning phenomenon here, and we got to do something about that. And if we can make these people happier and richer in their businesses, maybe we can find one way out of this dilemma.
All right. Dr. Kim, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
That very vivid
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat.
South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join Arirang's Yoo Ji-hye for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts, and more. Arirang News. Every weeknight, live on Arirang TV.
Some disappointing news for Samsung Electronics. Asia's biggest technology company has turned in a worse than expected earnings report for the fourth quarter of last year. With its rival Apple poised to extend its reach into the Chinese market later this month, it appears as though Samsung is facing a tough year ahead. Here's our Yoo Ji-hye with more.
The world's largest smartphone maker surprised analysts with its lower than expected earnings announcement. Samsung Electronics said Tuesday that its operating profits reached 8.3 trillion won, or roughly $7.8 billion in the October to December period. This falls far short of the most bearish outlook of $8.2 billion and also represents the company's lowest quarterly profit in more than a year.
The profit rate fell sharply in the smartphone sector. As competition grew fierce in China, the company saw high marketing costs. It also had to set aside funds to pay for fines in connection to lawsuits with Apple.
Analysts also point to the bonus payments to employees as another reason. They were given out to mark the 20th anniversary since Samsung chairman Lee Geun-hye set out an ambitious roadmap to turn his company into a global technology leader. Looking ahead, analysts say Samsung Electronics will do better this quarter than last on the back of strong semiconductor sales. But it seems that the era of explosive profits fueled by the tech giant's cutting-edge smartphones is over. While the company still faces hefty marketing costs, it now faces pressure to offer smartphones that aren't just better, but cheaper as well. It appears inevitable that profits will decline as its average selling prices continue to slide amid increased competition from low-cost smartphones. Analysts forecast single-digit growth or a slight contraction for the company's mobile division this year. On top of that, Apple's fierce marketing strategies loom as another threat this year. Starting late next week, Apple will enter China's $80 billion market, challenging Samsung's tight grip on the market there. Apple is also expected to start selling smartphones with larger screens near the end of the year, putting it in direct competition with Samsung's Galaxy Note series. Yurian, Arirang News.
And taking it out of Las Vegas, where one of the largest technology trade shows in the world is about to kick off. Korea's electronics heavyweights Samsung and LG are expected to lock horns, showing off their cutting-edge smart products and their latest electronics goods. Our Kim Jong-un has more.
Their Consumer Electronics Show 2014 is primed to pit fierce rivals Samsung and LG against each other. Both Korean tech giants are in Las Vegas with hundreds of other firms to unveil their TVs, smartphones, wearable devices, and pretty much anything else a consumer might want to buy. Samsung Electronics, the world's #1 maker of flat-screen TVs, hopes to extend its market lead with its 105-inch ultra-high-definition TV with a curved display that features state-of-the-art resolution. The UHD TV lineups feature so-called finger gesture functions, which allow users to activate the device by moving their hands over the device. LG Electronics will unveil the world's largest 77-inch curved organic light emitting diode, or OLED TV. LG says more than 70% of its smart TV lineup will eventually be equipped with WebOS. The WebOS operating system simplifies ways to control and find content on its smart TVs. Wearable devices are also one of the trends to watch in Las Vegas. Samsung is showing off its latest Galaxy Gear smartwatches, which can be linked to home appliances, allowing users to remotely control their TVs or lights with their smartwatches. LG is also pushing its wearable device, the LifeBand Touch, which offers fitness data to users as well as alerting users to phone calls and texts. Samsung and LG will also unveil a slew of connected home products, through which users will be able to connect to their home appliances via smartphones instead of through a separate smart device. The Consumer Electronics Show 2014 runs through January 10th. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
It's confirmed Janet Yellen is to become the first female chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve in its 100-year history. Connie Lee has more on the next in line to head the Fed and her plans to boost the U.S. economy.
With a vote of 56 to 26, the Senate has approved Democratic nominee Janet Yellen as the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. The Senate's nod on Monday makes Yellen the first female head of the U.S. Central Bank and one of the most powerful women in U.S. history, as she is set to lead a major economy. Yellen will officially take the reins on February 1st, replacing current Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, whose second four-year term expires at the end of this month. 67-year-old Yellen currently serves as the Fed's vice chair and as a supporter of the easy money policies the Fed has been pursuing under Bernanke. She's expected to continue the fight to bring unemployment down, even if that means strategies that drive inflation higher. When voting time came, the Republicans who voted against her were those against the Fed's aggressive $85 billion a month bond buying program, even though the Fed decided to taper the monthly purchases down to $75 billion starting January. At her first public appearance as nominee to succeed Bernanke last November, Yellen said she would follow in her predecessor's footsteps on quantitative easing. Previously, Yellen served as president of the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank and also governor of the Fed Board and chair of President Bill Clinton's Council of Economic Advisors. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And back here in the country, prosecutors have issued arrest warrants for 4 high-profile figures of Dongyang Group, one of the largest conglomerates in Korea, on charges of malpractice and fraud. The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office said the conglomerate's 65-year-old chairman Hyun Jae-hyun, with the help of his former senior executives, have been issuing fraudulent corporate bonds and commercial papers in bulk since 2007. Hyun is also suspected of intentionally filing for court receivership for 5 of the company's affiliates when it wasn't necessary, a move that inflicted heavy losses of around $940 million on investors. Hyun and his associates are to be questioned by authorities on Thursday. A papal visit could be on the horizon. Vatican insiders suggest that Pope Francis is very keen to visit South Korea, quite possibly in August. If he does, he would be the first pontiff to visit the country in 25 years. Shin Se-min reports.
A Korean Catholic Church spokesperson said Tuesday that a visit by Pope Francis to Korea could come sometime in August or October, when 2 separate major Catholic events will be held in the nation. The 6th Asian Youth Day will be hosted in Daejeon in August, while 2 months later, a ceremony to beatify 124 Korean Catholic martyrs could be held. Pope Francis is currently reviewing the case for beatification for Paul Yoon-ji Chung and his 123 companions who were tortured and killed in 1791 for practicing their faith. The Catholic Church of Korea has been requesting that Pope Francis visit the country since shortly after he was inaugurated last year, and said it has been receiving positive feedbacks from the Vatican. If Pope Francis does make the trip, it will be the first papal visit to Korea since Pope John Paul II came in 1989. Along with Pope's possible visit, there is speculation that a Korean archbishop may be created a cardinal at an appointment ceremony at the Vatican next month. And if appointed, that person would be the 3rd Korean cardinal ever. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Extreme weather is rearing its ugly head in different parts of the globe. Some regions of the United States are experiencing temperatures colder than the South Pole, while Argentina is coping with a brutal heat wave. For details, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung.
Good evening, Chi-hye. Now, the United States is getting more colder weather than ever. In fact, Chicago dipped to minus 46 degrees, and in Argentina, 10 people have been killed since a protracted heat wave began last month. Now, shifting gears to Korea's weather, the nation will gradually be under the influence of a low pressure trough, which is why we're seeing cloudy skies across the map. Well, here's some good news for those of you who've been waiting for snow, because snow is forecast for most parts of the country tomorrow. Now, the mountains in Gyeongsang-Pukdo could get up to 8 centimeters of snow, and the central regions, including Seoul, only a centimeter. Other than that, fine dust is back, and Seoul is currently seeing twice the normal level, so those of you with respiratory problems should take caution. Looking ahead at tomorrow's readings, Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju make it to 4 degrees, while rain is forecast in Busan all day with a high of 6. Moving on to other regions, Jeju and Dokdo reach 10 and 8 degrees respectively. Meanwhile, Mount Kumgang tops out at -5. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, and let's take a look at the international weather.
And that's a broadcast on this Tuesday evening. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. Thank you for watching.